Hi, welcome back to Spiritual Compass with me, Gary Guerrier. Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. Today, I have a special guest. I have Darryl Gaines. Welcome, Darryl. Thank you so much for coming. Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, it's great to be here, Gary. I am a professional astrologer for the last 30 years. And at Guiding Planet is my business because I practice astrology as it was meant to be, a spiritual science,
I love that.
you know, bringing awareness, also freedom, freedom to live your life, but understanding the weather that you were born with, where you've been, where you are now, and with understanding where you can go. But ultimately, it is choice. It is a life of free will because life should be lived freely.
I love that. I really
Yes.
do.
Yes.
At Spiritual Compass, we try to talk about self empowerment, self love, and talk about the things like fear, worry, and doubt. What I'd like to talk about today is how that, interjects with astrology.
Yes. Well, it's a glove. I mean, really, at the heartbeat of astrology is an understanding of self awareness, regardless of our charts. The chart begins with me, the physical body. And as it goes around, what looks like a clock telling us the times of our lives, but understanding each of those pieces is development. It's self awareness, it's understanding of mental health, of physical health, spirituality, creativity, work, career, and
Wow.
sometimes getting the individual to understand the difference between work and career, but also security, my money, your money,
Wow. So
higher
let me ask you a
consciousness.
question. So would it be sort of like a blueprint, right, that you have, right? And then after that, when someone talks to you, you tell them about the points in their blueprint.
Absolutely. So that moment of birth, as above, so below, all of those energies beyond just the sun, because the sun, I know that that's a focal point for many because it represents the conscious, it's what we know,
Right.
but there's so much else going on, even more important pieces such as the moon. That said, that blueprint that you just spoke of really defines a lot of our character, a lot of our characteristics. And then that moment that we are born, we breathe, we start to live. Look above. The planets are on the move too. We
Right.
progress, we mature.
Right.
And astrology is a glove to everything that you believe in,
Right.
self empowerment, awareness, maturity, understanding the moment where we are, and also the ability to move forward.
That's the most amazing thing about what you're saying about astrology, because what happens is I think sometimes people, you know, just go to astrology to just know about the future. Or who am I going to meet to love? Who am I going to? And so it seems
Hmm.
like with astrology, you tell them it starts with them.
Absolutely. You are the director of your life.
Mm,
Yes, I quite accurately can give you the weather of the moment or the forecast of the weather. But understanding your initial and innate essence, who you are, on top of what is going through the cycles and the progressions of life. That's what astrology gives you, that information. Okay, I was born with this difficult moment, but through progression and awareness, we can turn it around. So I
oh,
don't subscribe to, it's a part of human nature sometimes to look at things as bad and good. Um, but astrology clearly makes the individual understand, yes, it can be a challenging time. But every storm passes, right?
Ah, right. So it's
Right?
sort of like an insight to tell
Absolutely.
you the directional
Yes,
best pattern to take for your life.
absolutely.
Right. But
Sometimes,
after all, we all have free will, so you're either going to listen or you're not.
absolutely, and that's our choice. After all, we are the sum total of our choices, right? And the choosing may be wrong sometimes, but the choice may be wrong. The choosing is not.
Ah,
Because, with all due respect to F. Scott Fitzgerald, we have more than a second act. We have three, four, five. We have many opportunities, but I don't say that in a cavalier way that we just keep being unaware,
right.
but also not to be so fated that I'll never have a chance. Many charts begin to embrace their purpose perhaps during the second Saturn return at 58, 60.
Right.
Some perhaps really get it at 27, but they're not perfect. There are other things besides the outer world. Maybe they have to work on those issues of home and relationships. We're all in this together. We're all under this beautiful,
Right.
beautiful, sheltering, guiding sky. And that's why I called my business Guiding Light, because it is a guide.
It's a guide.
It's a guide.
It's a guide. It's
And
a
it
guide
gives
to
you,
get you.
it makes, doesn't it feel good to do something for yourself as opposed to going to someone and putting your life in their hands?
And that's what I try to tell all the time. You have the power. It's within you.
Yes.
Right? The power is within you. And that's what my whole book, Spiritual Compass, is all about.
Yes.
Is the compass is going to get you back to your own power because
Yes.
it's in there. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about is I think some people don't really understand astrology as far as like, you know, your sun, rising and then moon. If you can give like a
Sure.
quick
Sure.
explanation so people can understand, and perhaps when you go see an astrologer or
Right.
you,
Yes.
they can get a better idea.
Absolutely. And we want to be careful because astrology can be another language because it is. And myself included, especially in my earlier days of practicing, because we're so driven that what we believe in, so we have to explain it like a textbook or in our language. I feel now more comfortable with it being, because I said it looks like a clock, but for me it also looks like a beautiful musical composition or painting. So it's getting a person to understand their score or their script. And it's okay with not being aware. Sometimes we're dancing off beat or we're singing off key. Astrology gets us back on key. And sometimes, even the most rudimentary astrology, we get caught up in the negative. Oh, Mercury's retrograde. The universe is perfect. That
Wow.
orchestration is perfect. It's us without the awareness. We like to fall back on human nature and have an
Right.
excuse. Mercury's retrograde. The genesis of life is chaos. It's important that we go back so that we can move forward. That orchestration of the planets is perfect. Seeing an astrologer helps you dance to the beat of your life and sing in the songs and key of your life.
So it gets you back on the right notes.
Absolutely. And forgive me for, I want to come back to your point of understanding the basics.
Right.
We hear that language. My
Right.
rising is Gemini, my moon is in Libra,
Right.
and my Saturn is in Capricorn. What does that mean? There's so many layers, and we want to be careful. And I encourage and I love that there's so much interest now. I mean, a kid born today,
Ooh.
well, it's wonderful. It's in the vernacular. That said, sometimes we can be armchair quarterbacks, armchair astrologers, and that's not me saying I am possession of the Holy Grail.
Right.
Because every astrologer is learning through the cycles of life. I want to be
We
careful.
continue to grow.
Yes,
That's
we
what we're here
continue to
for.
grow. One of the successes of life is curiosity, to remain curious, to remain hungry with information. We just discovered Pluto in 1933. We discovered Chiron, the wounded healer, in 1977. Wow. There's so much to look forward to. That said, back to your original question, forgive me, that yes, rising, moon, sun are the three most important, or the key points.
Okay.
What is the rising? The reason why an astrologer asks you for your time of birth, because the time of birth acts as the architect of your chart, where at that exact moment, where as above, so below, where all of those energies are placed in that beautiful composition called your birth chart.
Wow.
So that's why timing is so important. Mm-hmm. Not only does it define where the chart begins, but it defines the ruler of your chart. For instance, the ruler of your chart is Mercury. Why? Because you're Gemini rising. What rules Mercury? Gemini. So we would look in your chart to see initially what relationships does the ruler of your chart make and where is it placed in that beautiful wheel. Okay? So there's so many layers, and it really is about getting to what matters most. And in my humble opinion, even more than the sun is the moon, because the sun is easy, right, especially by identification, because it acts as a calendar.
Right.
Even when, people say cusp, even though I don't believe in cusp, because it is a science. And mathematically, if you were born at 29 degrees Libra, right when the sun was about to go into Scorpio, you were born a Libra, not cusp.
Yeah.
I'm very clear about that. And that's okay.
I think
It
people
works.
like to look at the other side of the
Right.
aisle and be like, oh yeah, well I'm part of that too.
But the reason why that person would feel the Scorpio, because for every year on Earth in this existence, you move 1 degree. So by the time they're in the energy of Scorpio. But their sun is fair and square in Libra.
Okay.
That said, the sun is conscious. In many ways, it's like racial or gender identification. Yes, you identify, but it's really not who you really are. If you really want to know your reigning need, find your moon. And the moon isn't as easy to identify because it moves every 2.5 days. And some days it moves on that date. Another reason why the exact time of birth is critical. Because on any given day, for instance, if you were born with the moon in Cancer at 27 degrees and you were born at 5 in the morning, by 2 in the afternoon, it moved into Leo. So and the moon is a critical, it's the foundation of the chart.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Because
so that's
it
good
defines,
information, because I did not know. I always thought it was like, the rising sun, whatever, but this is really amazing information.
And the moon in real time, the lunar cycle. The old timers had it right. Even the ones that, sort of don't have a high opinion of astrology, but they certainly looked above. How did we define Passover this week? How are we defining Easter? How are we defining Ramadan?
Wow.
As above, so below.
Right.
That moon, every year, where was it for Passover?
Wow.
And the first in Talmud, in the scripture. And so the heavens will be a sign for seasons.
Wow.
So an understanding. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's okay, because I get it. And at this point in my life, I have no interest in proving, because you either believe or you don't.
Right, exactly. Just like anything.
I believe.
Right.
But that said, you can ask any police person at a precinct, or any medical worker at a hospital. Is the energy a little different tonight? Oh, it's a full moon.
Mm.
Energy,
Energy.
energy,
Yeah.
and the moon. And something I'd like for your audience to really pay attention to is the lunar cycle. That's something that isn't given enough, uh, you know, volume.
Okay.
Now, as much as I love how much astrology has been embraced,
Right.
but the moon is so important, and the monthly lunar cycle,
Mm.
even though as men we don't physically experience
Right.
the cycle, we experience the cycle. You know,
Wow.
the new moon, the first quarter square, the full moon, the last quarter square, and then we start again with the new moon.
Oh, wow.
And paying attention and where it plays out in your chart. And it's not about, and I want to be clear, it's not about being held hostage by the planets, because again, we have to live, but to be aware, to
Right.
bring understanding, especially if you were born with a bit of a temper. Mars in Aries at odds with your moon in Cancer.
Right.
You know, is that bad? No, but you have to be careful and keep your
Right.
emotions in check.
So, if someone gets their chart read, right, you can give them the insight of how to work on
Yes.
getting better.
Absolutely.
And after all, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And you've seen it in your own life.
Right.
It's called maturity.
Right.
And the other piece that I find to be critical is the planet Saturn, because it's that energy. And the first time we experience it is at 6 and 7, when we leave mommy and daddy and we start to exist in the outside world. We transcend from home. And it's that energy that defines our initial home environment to the outer world. That's why at 13 and 14, our bodies start to change.
Right.
That's the first opposition. And then the full return at 27, 28. And the Saturn return sometimes is misunderstood.
Okay.
I know, again, that as humans we like it to be, oh, my Saturn return, the chicken little,
Right.
sort of.
So, I want to end it on that with astrology, right? If you go and get your chart read, and it will give you an opportunity to see the finer points of how you can gain the power of self,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And if you're working with the therapist, it cuts to the chase.
Right.
I work with a great therapist in New York who has sent me clients just to get to the chase and to understand this person can take the tools to work with those very specific issues.
Right.
Sometimes we need that help.
Right.
But astrology defines it right away.
Nice.
The inferiority complex, right away. The lack of father in the home, right away.
Right away.
Right away.
Right.
The need for a darker side of passion,
Right.
the problem with addiction, all of that.
Right.
It's not about that's your fate, but to be aware of it,
And give you insight.
and through recovery or whatever, we're all in this together. And before we close, what's so important is, regardless of our charts, every 2.5 years, we go through a different lunar cycle. So we all have an opportunity to walk in each other's shoes with awareness, to understand.
And it's so needed in today's time.
That's why, we can't put words to it, but we can look back on our lives and see the various cycles. Why was I doing that? Why did it?
So we can, also we can connect the dots
Yes.
as we look back.
Understanding. Awareness.
Wow.
And then, with help, but ultimately with helping ourselves.
Right.
And also learning to help others. You know, you look at some charts where sometimes we get in our own way. You can see that in the
Right.
birth chart. You
Wow.
can see it all.
Wow, that's fantastic, Darryl.
It's wonderful, and I want to
I,
be
I,
clear. Yeah, I don't like this chart is good, this chart is bad.
right.
You know, ew, a Cancer, ew, you know, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, that's,
Because
yeah.
again,
That's
there's a bit
human
of us
behavior.
and all of
All of
us.
us.
There's a bit of us and all of us.
Thank
We
you.
all have a piece.
I can't begin to tell you just how much it's been amazing to have you here, and thank you so much for blessing us with
Well, thank
so
you.
much information, and thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate you.
It's great.
I'm Gary with Spiritual Compass. I hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to leave a comment, leave some messages of things you'd like to talk about, please do so. And don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell. Again, this is Gary Guerrier, Spiritual Compass. Thank you.